Bonjour, good morning. I'm Levi Rickert, editor of Native News Online, and we are having a coffee break with it's actually called the Native News Online's Election Coffee Break. This is a morning coffee. We just talked to you and we talked with our editorial staff. Neely Bardwell is missing this morning, but we have Marlon White Eagle, and he's up in, where are you today? Wisconsin?
I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. Yeah.
Hey, Marlon, talk about the election. Yesterday we published your article about the Minnesota tribal leaders' response to Tim Walz, Governor Walz, being chosen by Vice President Kamala Harris to be the nominee for vice president in this upcoming election. It was pretty popular with our readers. And what'd you learn from talking to the various Minnesota tribal leaders?
Well, one of the things that reminded me is I believe it was the Shakopee tribe. They had to do like a council meeting and then kind of release the information via council meeting. So, getting comment from a tribal government, it can be a little bit cumbersome for you can't just pick up the phone and say, hey, what do you got to say about this? They got to do a vote.
That actually causes a little delay in our publication sometimes because we want to get it out. But we've all been there when you talk with tribes, and sometimes the tribal chairperson could be the chairman, president, chief, governor, whatever they call them. But we even have a tribe here in Michigan. The leader is called the Ogama. So, but sometimes it's really hard to get responses. So
I tried contacting Mike Fairbanks, which from White Earth, and I've met Mike a few times, and he's a powwow dancer and whatnot. But he was getting sworn the first day I called. He just won re-election.
He got re-elected. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then the next time I called, he was up out in Canada for some meeting up there with Grand Portage, and I guess they all get together for a big council meeting.
Yeah, and from the feel of the story, the tribal leaders have had some really good relationships working with Governor Walz, and to our viewers, you may not know this, but Governor Walz was a teacher, high school social studies teacher for 20 years, but he actually started his teaching career on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And so we're actually trying to arrange an interview with the governor, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to him about that. And it seems to have, maybe that was the beginning of his affinity to working with Native Americans. Of course, he picked Peggy Flanagan, who is from the White Earth Ojibwe tribe, as being his running mate, the lieutenant governor of Minnesota. And upon if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz become president and vice president, upon his resignation, Peggy Flanagan will be the first female governor of any state in the United States. And so that's pretty cool in itself. And
indigenous,
Yeah. Hey, what are some of the tribal leaders like? We mentioned the good relations, but anything real specific that they talked about?
Not that I can remember. I think the one was just saying Lieutenant Governor Flanagan is a friend and a partner and a friend. So it's pretty close relation there. So I can't imagine what it would be like to have a lieutenant governor or even a governor. The potential's there to have a governor that's native.
Mm-hmm.
So the bond is there. Yeah.
And I think we all know this, and you have been a tribal leader at Ho Chunk Nation, the president. Sometimes when you talk to state reps in lawmakers and even people from the executive branch, they may or may not have had a lot of experiences working with Native Americans before they got elected. And I do know this, like I know here in the state of Michigan, there's a group that does what they call Indians 101 upon election of new lawmakers. They and I believe that they let existing lawmakers come in as well, who really want to get familiar with the issues. And sometimes, and as you well know, Marlon, sometimes we have to just explain our very existence, right? Like, well, we
Yeah.
hear these obscene, really obnoxious better word than obscene, but obnoxious statements saying, we didn't even know we exist because we thought we killed you all off. And some of my friends have told me that people say that to them. And so, but seriously, the fact that Tim Walz was a teacher on Pine Ridge, he saw, and Pine Ridge is one of the poorest areas in the United States. And I know that the county is now called Oglala County. It used to be considered one of the poorest. Sometimes it was like 1, 2, or 3, and when you get down to 1, 2, or 3, the worst of the worst, doesn't really matter what ranking you are, but very, very poor. And so I'm sure that Tim Walz, as a teacher, beginning his career as a teacher, educator, actually saw the harsh realities of some of the poverty that exists on Indian reservations. So I think that really works really well in his favor. Of course, Peggy, being Native, she knows what she knows, so that's great.
Yeah.
Well, Marlon, how do you think Peggy will do as a governor if she becomes the governor?
I think she would do fine. I think she would do fine. I've seen a lot of they're showing the Governor Walz photos on various news outlets, and you see Peggy right there with him. So I'm sure she knows the day-to-day operation of the Minnesota government. So that'll be, she'll just have to take a couple steps forward there, and she's right there.
And I don't know what the arrangement is, but I do know in some states when the governor is physically out of the state, the lieutenant governor has to remain pretty close to the action and actually run the state. So we'll see. Both of them, I'm sure, will be at the Democratic National Convention next week in Chicago. And you and I are going to be there, and I'm looking forward to that. I think it'll be good to see Native American delegation and get to know them, become acquainted with some of the issues that they want to push forth, and make sure we'll be on the Democratic Party's platform. And I know that the last 2 or 3 election cycles, proud to say, Native Americans have really pushed the issue. And I think as a result of that, you do see where the Biden-Harris administration, soon after the convention last year, came up with a 15-page document of saying this is how we will govern as it relates to Indian country. And kind of, I can't remember the exact name of it, but I think the word promises was in there. And honestly, you can go back and go paragraph by paragraph and see so much of what they were able to do. But behind the scenes, and a lot of people don't know this, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris didn't come up with this on their own. There were Native Americans who are very active and just know what they're doing. I mean, maybe leaders, attorneys. I want to use the word lobbyists, but I'm not so sure about that. But really, those who are really active, that push the envelope and say, these are the points that are really, really critical. And across the federal government, you're looking at a whole array of situations, from agriculture. We're working, Native Americans are working hard on the Farm Bill, making sure that Native Americans have certain provisions, tribal provisions within the Farm Bill. Housing is a major thing. And I noticed the other day that Vice President Harris said that affordable housing is very, very high on her list of priorities. So we're going to see how it shakes down. And you're looking forward to going to Chicago?
Oh yeah. I did sign up for some of those caucuses at the McCormick Center, and I think the women's one, the veterans one, and of course the native caucus. So yeah, those will be fun.
And these coffee breaks are informal, so I'll share with you on a personal level. My daughter called me on 2 nights ago and said, "Dad, the treasurer of our tribe called and wants to know if I would we would open up the Native Futures. Now, Monica, my daughter, she and some colleagues, Deb Papan and others, started something called the Native Futures. It's a gallery, contemporary Native American gallery, 56 West Adams, right across the street from Calder at Federal Square in Chicago, in the loop of Chicago. And so he called, said, we have 4 Prairie Band Potawatomi members who are delegates. And would you open up, have a reception for us? And so next week, Tuesday or Wednesday, she wasn't quite sure. They're going to have a real reception. So it's really kind of cool that Native Americans go to Chicago and Native, there's a, depending on who you talk to, there's anywhere from 75 to 100,000. And I've even heard as high as 120,000 Native Americans who live in Chicago, and I'm talking Chicago proper and all the suburbs. But as you know, Marlon, Chicago was a relocation city back in the 50s when that was the one of the policies of the federal government, the relocation, taking Native Americans off reservations, sending them to cities. Some of them are still there, and I have in the past met a few that actually were part of that relocation process, and now they got married or brought their wife back then. Now they have families that live there, but they are a result of that. So it's a pretty vibrant community, actually, the Native American community in Chicago. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Oh, it's good to see my daughter, that's for sure. But yeah, and Marlon, back to Governor Walz. You were actually up in Eau Claire last week, excuse me, and what was it, the day after he was actually selected by the vice president to be his,
Yep, he was there just before Detroit.
Before her, the day after she announced he would be her running mate. And what was your impressions of his during his speech?
Yeah, he's got a lot of energy. He's, I could see football coach in him. And one of the things was, it was kind of a hot day and there's a big crowd. We talked about the crowd size is an issue for some people, but there was one, and it reminded me like a music concert of somebody got overheated out in the front, and then he stopped speaking and helped, get the water over there. And so he was, very kind, and, he wasn't like, I need to get my speech done and get out of here. He was there with all the people that were present. Mm-hmm. But there was a couple of things I wanted to mention. One was on the tribal leaders in Minnesota. I learned that Melanie Benjamin was the chief executive for years, like almost 20 years at Mille Lacs, and I guess she had decided not to run for re-election. So Virgil Wind, and he's in the article. Virgil's the new tribal executive for the Mille Lacs tribe.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. I actually sat next to him at the Midwest Alliance of Sovereign Tribes meeting up in Minnesota. It's been a few weeks ago now, I guess maybe 5 weeks ago or thereabouts. And really nice guy. And Melanie Benjamin is actually coming to our sister publications economic summit, and then it's the Tribal Business News Great Lakes Economic Summit will take place September 17th and 18th, and Melanie is going to be part of a panel, or really it's actually a fireside chat talking about economic development issues and as it relates to healthcare. So I'm really looking forward to that. I consider her a friend, and she's a great lady, and she decided not to run again, and so here we are. Yeah, Virgil's a nice guy. He's a very nice guy. Her who won the election for, and they call him the chief executives or executive?
Chief executive. Yeah.
Oh,
then the other point was in finding out more about Peggy Flanagan. She had started out as a community organizer, so similar to what your daughter's doing. Organize for the Democratic Party there, but for her, she would help with a campaign of Paul Wellstone, the late senator there in the Minneapolis area. So it's interesting to know that, you start with the little grassroots organizing, and then, she's right on the cusp of becoming the first Native female governor in history. So very
Yeah,
impactful.
yeah. This election cycle with all of its ups and downs, and I told somebody I'm thinking way back in February this is going to be a roller coaster ride, and it certainly has been with the attempted assassination of former President Trump. Then days later, President Joe Biden pulling out of the race, and then all of a sudden, um, it is almost as if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have kind of exploded on the scene like a fad. And I'm not sure you can call it a fad, but they're very seem to be very popular these days. And um, I was listening just this morning that I understand that they're so popular among the youth, TikTok, and one side's mocking how she laughs, and the kids love how she laughs. She's bringing laughter and joy to the world, and we as Native Americans, we know that we call it Indian humor, right? That
Yeah.
can't even with all the things you talk 500 years plus of oppression, which is all true. Man, Marlene, if that's all we dealt with in life, we'd be depressed and think it's all over, but it's not all over. And I think we have a bright future as Native Americans, and I try to keep very positive. That's one of the things that I'm proud of Native News Online. We obviously have to cover the hard subjects, but we love to celebrate Native American success stories. And I think certainly covering Peggy Flanagan is very, very fun to see what's happening, because I remember when she was elected in I think it was 2015, the fall, that as the state rep, and I was at a conference when it happened, and some of my friends were just saying, you got to talk to her, Levi. She's a spectacular person. And so shortly thereafter, I got to know Peggy, and so yeah, she's an emerging leader, and it's pretty cool. And who knows where she'll go, right? Governor, and who knows what's next. So. Well, Marlon, we got to bring this to an end. Love talking to you, and look forward to see you in Chicago, my friend. And to our viewers, we'll be back. We actually may come live two or three times with coffee breaks from Chicago next week at the Democratic National Convention. So in the meantime, stay safe, and we'll